And welcome back to Sports Talks. I'm Afonso and I'll be presenting the events throughout this afternoon. I'm here with André Seabra and Pedro Brinca, and they will be talking about the importance of the development in the sports education. Enjoy this panel. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Afonso. It's really a great pleasure to be here today and to have this conversation with André Seabra, who's been my counterpart at the Portuguese Football Association, and that, more than a colleague, is now a good friend, and we have a lot of fun working together in this field. So I guess we'll organize this hour a little bit, focusing on the relevance, of course, of the sports education, talking a little bit about our experiences and the projects that we are doing, and the kind of things that matter for the future. But for the start, I would like to begin with giving the word, first introducing André. André is a former sportsman also. He was connected to the football industry as a coach also. And of course, he had an academic career. He became a PhD in sports, and is a professor at the University of Porto. And he was, about 4 years ago, he was invited by the Portuguese Football Association to come and lead a new institution that was created and by him, called the Portugal Football School. And I would like to start to invite André to talk a little bit about what was that experience, what were the initial challenges, and also its role and its mission in the Portuguese Football Association.
Well, thank you, Pedro. First of all, to say thank you to the invitation to be here. For me, it's a great honor to be in the Carcavelos campus with my friends and colleagues from Nova School of Business and Economics. It's a great pleasure to have the chance to talk a little bit about education and what we are doing in our Portugal Football Association in terms of education and training of the different stakeholders. Well, as Pedro already said, I'm a professor in the University of Porto. More particularly, I'm a professor in the Faculty of Sports. My background is in physical education and sport. And my PhD is about epidemiology of physical activity. That is a topic that for the students in a management and economic school, of course, it's not the most interesting topic, but is my area, is my background. But 4 years ago, only to talk about the beginning of the story, the Portuguese FA, more particularly the president of the Portugal Football Association, Fernando Gomes, and the general director, Tiago Craveiro, decided, in terms of the strategic planning that they decided 5 years ago to implement in our federation, decided to create an education and research unit inside of the federation. The name that was given to the unit was Portugal Football School. But the main idea of the president, Fernando Gomes, was, in terms of education and training, was to give education and training not only for coaches and referees, that usually is what the majority of the sport organizations usually do in terms of education offer, but try to cover, in terms of education, the other stakeholders, and more particularly, the leaders and the managers of the clubs. And also, of course, the guys that work in the health units in our clubs, and also the guys that work in the media, the society, and the players. And the idea of the education that nowadays in the Portuguese FA is a mission, is also to give education to the different stakeholders that, in our opinion, has a huge importance in the promotion of sport in Portugal. And this was the idea when we started to create a basic initial education program that nowadays we are developed 9 editions of our initial education programs, more than 1,000 participants. Nowadays we have in our clubs more than 1,000 leaders that already did an education programs in topics related with management, and of course in topics related with finance and marketing and communication. But after the second edition of this initial education course, the President Fernando Gomes decided we need to launch also executive education with focus in people from different countries, not only from Portugal, because nowadays, as I think you know, that the Portuguese FA is European champions in football, also in futsal, is world champion in beach soccer, and is the first sport branding in Portugal. And for the majority of the leaders, coaches, players from different countries, nowadays the Portuguese FA is a reference. And then the idea was, in fact, to implement and to develop an education program in English. And we decided the first course, the first executive course in topics related with management, to invite the Nova SBA, and the story starts, the partnership with Nova start with this first course, and nowadays we have 4 different education programs with the Nova. But the main idea for us is, if you want to promote and to improve the quality of the sport in Portugal, you need, of course, to have more educate the different stakeholders that we believe that has a responsibility to promote sport in Portugal.
But André, I mean, the Portugal Football School has done a great job at capacitating all these different layers of professionals within the technical areas, but also, you know, in areas that connect to the industry as a whole. But it's more than that, right? Because the Portugal Football School is a research and development unit with a lot of PhDs doing research work, you know, getting papers published in top journals, participating in conferences, you know, having PhD students doing research. You want to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah. Well, I don't explain well the main purposes of our education unit inside of the Portuguese FA. I only focus in the education, but the Portugal Football School has 3 main purposes. Well, of course, the first is educate and training the different stakeholders, but the second, that is also very important to us nowadays, is research. Research in topics that for the Portuguese FA are very important in terms of the development of the 3 different sports that we have inside: football, futsal, and beach football. In terms of research, usually when we talk with another sports organizations and football federations, the majority of the people that work inside of these federations think that well, the idea is to develop research in topics related with the performance of the players and performance of the teams. But the idea of our education unit and research unit is, of course, performance is a very important topic. Well, nowadays we have more than 90 scientific articles published in peer-reviewed journals. Of course, the majority are in topics related with performance, particularly topics related with the recovery and how to improve the performance of the players. But for the Portuguese FA, and 8 years ago, when the President Fernando Gomes initiated the first mandate, the Portuguese FA decided to participate and to be partner in different scientific projects in topics related with physical activity, sport participation, and health and quality of life and well-being of the children's, adolescents, and adults. And nowadays we have running different projects, as I explained, not only in performance, but in topics related with health of the people that, of course, love so much football, and we use football and futsal as a physical activity strategy to promote health. But this is one of the ideas of our research in topics not only related with performance. The third proposal of the unit is, of course, the knowledge transfer. It's not enough to do research, but it's very important to transfer the knowledge for the community, the different stakeholders. And as I said, nowadays, in 4 years, we have more than 90 papers. And we have also, inside of the Federation, the idea to publish each year, more or less, 5 books in topics related with science. 1 week ago, we launched 2 new books about technical aspects of the futsal. That for us, it's a great pleasure and an honor to know that in FNAC online, the 2 books of futsal are in the top of the most
sold
books in the last week. It's a fantastic, but also the idea to each year to create and to launch and to scientific conferences. Nowadays, we already launched and implemented 3 different scientific conferences. The first one about the main topic of to use football as a strategy to promote health. And the second one was about refereeing, that it's difficult in Portugal to talk about refereeing. But we decided that we need to change the mind of the different stakeholders in Portugal, and we need to show also that we can do research, we can develop scientific projects in referee, and then we decided to also to do in our City of Football a scientific conference about this topic. And the last one, last year, about nutrition. Also, to invite the most important academic guys in nutrition related with sports to come to the City of Football and also to share the scientific experiences about the topic. But this has, nowadays, the Portugal Football School has these 3 different purposes. But it's also important to explain that in the strategic planning that the President Fernando Gomes decided to implement in our federation, that before the Portugal Football School in 2016, the President Fernando Gomes decided, inside of the Portuguese FA, decided to invite knowledge in our human resources to participate in the growth of the Portuguese FA. It's difficult to imagine for the majority of the sports organizations, when I talk about this, that inside of the federation nowadays, we have 10 PhD guys. The majority of them, as you can imagine, are in sports science, are also in health, in topics related with health, and law. But nowadays we have 25 master employers inside of the Portuguese FA. And more or less 60% of the collaborators of the Portuguese FA are graduated. And the main idea of the President Fernando Gomes is exactly the same. If you want to improve the sport in Portugal, and if you want to improve the quality of the federation, you need, of course, to have human resources well qualified and specialized in topics related with sport. And this was the mission that was followed by the Portuguese FA. And 2 months ago, the next step was, with the same idea, was the creation of the Portugal Football Observatory. The idea is, of course, to continue the growth in science inside of the Portuguese FA, but with the idea in 5 different domains: coaches, players, referees, competitions, and topics related with health and society. Each month is mandatory to publish a study, a scientific study in a topic, with the idea, of course, to use the different platforms, with the idea to share with the different stakeholders the results of the studies. And this was the new step, because we believe that the science is very, very important in order to promote sport in Portugal.
Okay, thank you, André. So one of the things that I really enjoyed about the growth, and I've seen the project growing, is that, you know, the Portuguese Football Association is precisely a perfect example of how you can combine research with capacitation and education, and at the same time combine both inside industry knowledge that we universities don't have so much typically. We have the opposite, we have the academic research, but that the Portuguese Football School, an ecosystem was created where you could combine actually inside knowledge of the football industry with academic credentials. And in that sense, I believe it's a fantastic project. And one of the things that you mentioned, that I think there's still some you know, there's a path to be walked, and there's a lot of road to walk through. You mentioned one of the key aspects of the Portugal Football School, which is to transform a little bit the image of the sports industry, right? Now we know that, you know, historically football, you know, evolved even as a product, right, throughout time. And even the international institutions like UEFA and FIFA, they've been combining efforts to change a little bit the industry with the fair play regulations, and before that with the club licensing. And one of the things that I think people still kind of escape, especially in Portugal, is this double image that the industry has, right? So most of the people, they look at football and they have one impression, right? They see the football debates on TV and these kind of things, and all the referee talk and all that stuff. But what they haven't realized, and I could kind of witness firsthand, is the extreme level of competence, competition, competitiveness, professionalism, and devotion that this industry is characterized. And if you think about it, there aren't that many industries, if there's any, you know, when you start looking at niches of industries, where Portugal has been so successful in the world stage, right? I mean, you look at the national teams in Portugal, and if you lived in the 80s, like I did, I'm getting old, I guess, and Portugal was traditionally the national team of the almost there, right? And we kind of changed that paradigm, right? And with that, I think one of the key things has been exactly this scientific, methodic, professional attitude towards football. And I think, I mean, we understand that the professional side of football is only, you know, the top tier clubs and institutions in Portugal, but nothing is done without building stuff from the roots, right? If you want to change mentality in the way that people see the industry, you have to change also the way that the majority of the industry, even those who are not professionals, also see it. And I think one of the key aspects and one of the key successful strategies, I think, in the cultural change that is ongoing in Portugal, the way that people see the sports industry, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about, you know, the offers that we are planning to do, has been precisely the way that people are perceiving the industry, thanks to the capacitation that, you know, the Portuguese Football Association has done, not just at the top echelons of professionals, because, you know, those clubs, they have the conditions to bring the most qualified experts, but also at, you know, clubs that typically compete on the second, third divisions, and even in the, you know, distritais, as we say in Portuguese, the local regional competitions. So one of the things that I really appreciate is precisely the, you know, the change in mentalities and that role. And to share a little bit the experience at Nova, historically, we always had a lot of students who, despite they were taking finance or management or economics, they've always had a passion for sports. I guess it's something that is kind of deeply entrenched in the Portuguese genes, I guess. People are a bit fanatical about sports. And the thing is, historically, we always had a lot of students that when they are about to graduate, they want to write their own work projects, master theses, and so forth, be it in marketing, in finance, in the sports industry. And so one of the things that me and André started to explore was a different segment that neither the Portuguese Football Association was exploring, or us, actually, outside our formal programs, like our undergrad programs in management economics. And this was looking at pre-experience, that segment. People who have not yet had work experience, but still they were passionate about the sports industry. And we wanted to do in two different ways. So one way was, let's use the industry as a metaphor for highly competitive, sector and environment. Okay, so some of the programs, not actually also the executive programs, we do that. We use some things that were being mentioned just the talk before, how working in sports or being a top athlete builds resilience, discipline, it brings work ethics, because it's like extraordinarily competitive. You cannot survive in that industry if you don't have all these qualities. But these qualities are also relevant for the corporate market, right? I mean, if you think about a top CEO or something like that, he lives in a very demanding kind of life. He has to be very focused. He has to take decisions under a lot of pressure. So there are a lot of bridges. So at the beginning, when we start building some programs, underlying this, motivation was this idea that indeed there's a lot that other industries and other sectors in Portugal, and our students in particular, could learn with the practice of the leading entities in the sports industry, which in our case was exactly the Portuguese Football Association. So we created two programs. One was football is much more than 90 minutes, right? And then it was built around the Super Cup event that happens every year in August. And the idea there was to grab the chance of looking at the different sides of setting it up, logistics, communication, finance, all these things, ticket selling, all of that. And these were served as excuses for us to talk a little bit about, economics, management, all those things that, are relevant to come up with an event like that, but are also useful in the corporate world, right? And then in the afternoon, we would have the people in charge of those things showing a practical application in the sports industry. So that program was really fun, a lot of fun. COVID kind of made kind of a halt on that program that you expect to resume sometime in the future. But it kind of gave us a hint that indeed, combining the knowledge, the inside knowledge that the Portuguese Football Association has of the industry, bringing also their, research capabilities and their capacitation skills, and putting them together with Nova's knowledge of academia and management practice and so forth, could actually produce some products for exactly the development in sports education that could, benefit both parties, and more than, and above that, actually, our stakeholders, which is our students and the community, right? So we started with that program, and it was quite successful. And following that, we created a second program. And that second program was called There Are No Great Tactics Without Great Talents, right? So it was a program that was specially focused at talent development, right? And now it was very focused on human resources, basically, right? So we had 5 days of teaching, where the mornings, again, were taken by Nova SP professors who had, competences in organizational behavior, on human resources management, the different fields of what it means to manage people. And then in the afternoon, we had really a luxury kind of panel. We had the national team coach in futsal. We had the national team coach for the sports, for the national team of women's football.
Women's football.
So we had kind of really large panel that put to practice how is it to lead teams of highly competent people, right? Because that's what we aim also as organization, as NOVA, is to provide capacitation to our students that allows them to manage, highly competent people and bring the best out of them. That's precisely also what the national coaches at the Portuguese Football Association do on an everyday basis, now applied specifically to football. And we also did something that I think it worked particularly well. We all know the magnetic power that this industry has. I don't think people working in an industry, and sometimes people outside the industry, realize the privilege that it is to work, in a field or in an industry that makes people so passionate about, right? I remember I was teaching one of these courses in one of these programs at the Portuguese Football Association, and all of a sudden Mourinho comes into the building. Well, the class stopped. Everyone wanted to get out and take a picture with Mourinho, right? So this is an area that moves where people are very, very passionate. So one of the things that we did was to organize some social events that included some of these magnetic figures. So one thing we did was a beach football game right here at the Praia de Carcavelos with Majer, who was at the time the world best player in beach football. So we had students and some professors, and actually some professors from the Portuguese Football Association. It was the medical doctor of the national team, right? He also participated in the football game. Everyone playing with Majer, right? So, I think one of the key things that I think we take from this little experience that I'm sharing with you is exactly that when developing these products, there's a lot of value creation that can come merely from the fact of allowing people to interact with the main figures that are part of the industry. They can be, of course, famous players that are still active. That's a no-no, of course. But former players, Portuguese Football Association has a lot of directors with a very famous and impactful career that attract a lot of people. So, in terms of value creation, in terms of programs, this is a very, very appealing area to build these programs. So going forward, one of the things that we learned with those two programs was that indeed there was a lot of interest on behalf of our students in pursuing careers in the sports industry. And as such, me and André came up with an idea, and actually it was not me or André, it was actually Daniel Traça, the head of the school, came up with the idea of studying the possibility of opening a major in sports management within our masters in management. Okay, so actually originally it was not in football. It was not in sports management. It was in football management. So following that, we had a meeting with Tiago Craveiro, who is the vice president of the Portuguese Football Association, and where Tiago correctly pointed out that it would make more sense to do it around sports, not just football, right? Because it was broader. There's a lot of more actors in the industry, and there are a lot of synergies. Right? A lot of the knowledge that comes from the business side, when applied to football, it wouldn't be that much different if applied to, other sports and industries. And in that sense, it would make sense exactly to open it to other sports. So we went with that forward. We started doing some market kind of research, whether we had the interest, whether there was a market for the students, because at NOVA we worry a lot about the placement of our students and the kind of, working conditions they will have in terms of employment rates, in terms of wages. All those things are very important to us. So we wanted to make sure that we were creating a product, the sports management major, that could actually give the conditions to our students to pursue a very successful career. Okay, so within that scope, what we did was precisely to start first doing some surveys. So some of our own students did some master thesis surveying different parts of the globe and even students at this school to try to understand what was the interest in pursuing a career in the industry. And At this point, at the point that this was being made, I can't really say that it was to my surprise, because I was already doing this with André for a while, and we kind of sensed that there was a lot of interest. But to the surprise of many of my colleagues, there was a lot of interest in the students. Okay, students really wanted to build a profile that would allow them to exercise their management, marketing, human resources, finance, whatever, skills in an area that they were passionate about, which was sports industry. So that the first step was made. The second step was trying to work out with the Portuguese Football Association if we could build a product, an offer of a program that could actually bring value added to the students. And that was easy because on one hand, as we discussed already, the Portuguese Football Association has a lot of people, with PhDs, top academic credentials, and at the same time, a lot of inside knowledge of the industry. But not just that, they also have a lot of networking, right? So it would be very easy to mobilize top figures from the sports industry to come to Nova and share their experiences with our students. I mean, every month, we have people from UEFA, top clubs in Europe and so forth, visiting the City of Football for work meetings and so forth. And as you know, City of Football is 10 minutes away. So we could benefit a lot from that experience. So the next step was trying to talk with the potential employers. And that was the step that followed already this year. So in the last months, me and André, we've been having a lot of talks with a lot of institutions to try to understand, if there was interest that our students would be doing their work thesis, their work projects at their own institutions. Now, initially, and that's natural, the first institutions that we managed to bring as partners to this effort were precisely football clubs and sports associations. Okay, actually I shouldn't say football clubs because all these clubs, they have many sports. So the first people or the first institutions joining were sports clubs and sports associations like the Portuguese Basketball Association and so forth, and the Olympic Committee and the Paralympic Committee. All those were very keen in joining the efforts, and all of them recognized that they could see opportunities for value creation using students from our program. And it was very important also to pass the message that it was not a program that, done by Nova and sponsored somehow by the Portuguese Football Association. No, it's a joint program because the Portuguese Football Association, through the Portuguese Football School, have the skills, the competences to perform research at the highest level and consequently to pass those competences and knowledge to our students. So they were very excited. So right off the bat, we got we got the top 6 clubs in Portugal, top in the terms of the clubs that qualify to European competitions. We got the Basketball Portuguese Association, we got the hockey, volleyball, we even had the Portuguese Syndicate of Football Players. All of them were very eager and keen to join us as partners and to explore opportunities to develop projects that can create value to their organizations. Okay, that's always the premise. Applied work that can bring value to their organizations. Now, it was relatively easy to bring those in Portugal, and what followed was then to, have an effort to bring more international partners. And this happens, of course, because we want to be competitive in the world stage. Obviously, that's the ethos of Nova. But also because more than 50% of our master's students are foreigners. We used to say half jokingly, that we are the best German business school because we are the #1 choice for German students when they want to come and have a management education. I guess Germany doesn't have really that many top schools in management. We managed to be one of their favorite choices. So 60% of our students are foreigners, with the biggest markets being Germany and Italy. But of course, we have students from more than 80 countries in the world. So the next step was, and that's what we're doing right now, we're engaging a lot of partners to, that would be open to these talks, into coming up with projects that our students can do and create value for the organization, and of course also create values to them because they have a first contact with the industry. They manage to, put their skills to practice in the real world, and with that they gain experience, they gain capabilities, and above all they gain networking. So that was a big challenge. Now the next challenge that we are working on is to bring more corporate partners. So I'm very happy also to say that we've been very successful. Every week we have 2 or 3 more partners joining. So we're going to have a meeting next week with the students to announce all our partnerships, trying to see who wants to work there, where, doing what. And I expect that will be a pretty nice meeting. Lastly, before I turn over also to André for some more conversation, one thing that surprised me was that when meeting with these partners, we immediately realized that there was no reason for closing the partnership with these institutions only to the master in sports management. Okay, so we're going to develop an offer of courses in sports management, but of course it would make all the sense that even people who pursue, and highly specialize in one area like marketing, right, that they could also benefit from these partnerships. And as such, this year we decided to create a work project, or as we call it in Nova, a field lab, which is basically students, when they end the first year, they have to sign up for their work projects or field labs. So we created one called Sports Management. And it's funny because when we started thinking about offering this program, our metric of success, and this comes from experience with launching other majors, was to have around, between 15 and 18 students interested in pursuing this. I have to say that without any promotion, without any effort, but just, putting there the option, sports management. Okay, we got more than 60 students this year that already are interested in putting their skills to practice in the sports industry. This exceeded by far even the best of scenarios, because when I tell you that our goal is to have 18 students, it was like after 2 or 3 years. That's the kind of growth that we get in some streams of the management program, right? We have over 600 students. We have many streams. And of course, students might choose not to specialize in anything. But in this case, most of our streams, they don't have that after 10 years of being in the works. So this is extremely promising. This means that we have a lot of young, talented people that want to build a career in the sports industry. I should remind you that we are very fortunate here at Nova to be able to attract the best talent. I mean, the GPA at entry for our undergrad programs is typically the highest in the country. So we get like the top 1% of talent in Portugal. And being able to convince that talent to put their talent to work in the sports industry can have, and I believe that, a profoundly transforming effect. Okay, to bring all this talent into the sports industry, making it even more professional, even more dedicated, and I guess strengthening even more all the beautiful history that we already have in the industry. So this is what we are planning to do, and we plan to have this major fully working at 22-23, but somehow it's already, starting, because all these partnerships that we are forming, they are already open to students of other majors and other activities. So this is one of the things I wanted to share you about, that Nova is motivated into building an offer and being a player in this industry. One thing I also wanted to share with you is that already this year, Nova is one of the higher education institutions that is referenced in this World Fair called I Work in Sports. For those who don't know, I Work in Sports, it's a yearly fair that takes place in Switzerland, and that puts together all the major players, football clubs, football associations, you know, Adidas, Nike, if I'm allowed to make some advertising here. All these top brands, they go there to recruit people for the industry of sports. Nova is represented there this year, not physically because of the pandemic, but we plan to be in the next periods. Students who want to go to that job fair, they have a special discount for being Nova students, and we are working into expanding those type of capabilities with international brands. So we also brought, for example, and now I guess I'm already allowed to mention that because they sent us an email yesterday confirming SoccerX, which is the entity that organizes the biggest football conference in the world. They are also partners of this program, and they are open to take interns and students who want to develop their work projects with those institutions. Just today at lunch, we were very happy. I'm not sure if I can already. Oh, you can. Okay, good. We just signed another partnership. So you see, they keep coming. So we already talked with Sports Alliance, which is also a major player in the data science applied to sports industry, which is great news because we have a major in business analytics, and we have a lot of students who are very talented working with data. So there you go. We have another partner where you can perform your work projects. We're building more, a larger network, and we believe that we can make this area really grow. So I'm talking already for too long. I also want to...
I only want to add something.
Pass the ball to André now.
Well, I'm also very happy in what we are creating in this partnership between the Nova and the Portuguese Football Association. But I'm also very happy because 4 years ago, when Fernando Gomes invited me to participate in the creation of this unit, one of the idea, President Fernando Gomes said to me, well, you need to create education and training courses for different stakeholders, not only coaches and referees. And please, don't forget, we need to invite and to bring to inside of our federation the schools, the universities, and the research centers. Because we need to have inside of our federation the academic knowledge in order to implement our strategic planning. But he said also another point that, well, we need to bring inside the academic knowledge, but we also to live in the faculties, also in the universities, the knowledge, specialized knowledge that we have inside of the federations to the faculties and the universities. And that beginning, I remember some faculties from my University of Porto that said to me, it's impossible to create education programs in partnership with a federation, with a sport organization. But fortunately, that for us, since 4 years, nowadays we have a vast diversity of education programs in partnerships with different universities. The first collaboration was with the Faculty of Medicine of the University of Porto. We have 2 different programs, one with focus in physicians, the second one with focus in physiotherapists and nurses. Nowadays is running the 4th edition of these 2 programs. And then it was for me, the collaboration with the Nova is amazing. But when President Fernando Gomes said to me, well, you need to organize an executive course in management, and we decided, as I joke with Pedro Brinca, but that my background is in sports science and more particularly in epidemiology. And when I started the unit, and the idea to give education to leaders and managers, we need, of course, to give to these leaders and managers contents related with management, marketing, finance, and other topics related with management. And when I talked with the first course with the Nova, when we decided to invite Nova to, and why I decided to invite Nova, because my background is not in management, easy. Only to read the rankings, and it's easy to understand that the best school that we have in Portugal is Nova. And we decided to go to arrange a meeting with the president of Nova, Daniel Traça, in Campo Lide, and I showed to Daniel Traça a course that a guy that is not from the management area decided to create, and Daniel immediately said, well, in our curriculum, we don't have any education programs in topics related with sport, but we are in the game, and we help the Portuguese FA in the creation and implementation of this executive course in football management. But I never forget that when we talk about break-even, the meaning of break-even for me is nothing. I only talk about incidence, prevalence, but about break-even, I never listened this meaning of this word, and it was fantastic. But then we started the collaboration with the Nova, and nowadays we have some courses with the ISCTE, Católica Business School, Porto Business School, Faculty of Motricidade Humana, and we have different schools that support the Portuguese FA in education and training of the different stakeholders. And I believe that, and Pedro, when talk about the problem that we have in Portugal, and inside of the Portuguese FA, several times, the collaborators of the Portuguese FA talked to me and said, the number of education and training courses that are running nowadays in Portugal in topics related with management, marketing, finance, fiscality, and other topics, we have many education courses, but unfortunately, the problems remain. As you know, the problems remain, but as I usually say, this is a new project that started 4 years ago. It's not easy to expect results in short terms, but we believe that only with education and training of the different stakeholders, we will have a chance to have much better behaviors in the different stakeholders, in the society, but it's very difficult to, but it's very difficult in a population, in a country that football is so popular, and it's the passion around the football is so high that it's not easy to expect the short-term results of these 4 years of education programs, of course, to contribute to change immediately the behaviors and the values of the population. But we believe that with the collaboration with the education schools, and also to remain with the education and training programs in the future, we need to believe that we will have more educate, we will have more behaviors that we accept that are good in terms of the sports in Portugal.
I guess we should open to questions.
Yeah, I have a question for André. With the growing demand for sport education and the Portuguese FA is really interested on that, and with the certification process that the clubs have to go through, do you think that in the future we will see that the club administrators need to have some certification like coaches have today? Do you think that we will get to that point?
Very, very good questions. I don't know exactly when we'll start the certification of the leaders, but I believe that probably in 2 years, the leaders of the clubs need to have also the certification to be part of the clubs and to be part of the sports competitions. In the licensing process that nowadays is starting in Portugal, I believe that we will have a point that will be mandatory for the leaders, not only for coaches and referees. But as I explained to you, we only start the education and training with focus in leaders, we start 3 years ago. But nowadays, I know that inside of the Portuguese FA, the idea is to create some criteria in order to have to create inside of the leader's mind that they need to have also qualifications in topics related with management. This is the idea. Another point that I forgot to explain to you is probably the most, in my opinion, of course, it's only my opinion, one of the most important projects that the Portuguese FA decided to develop, and that the project started in 2016, was the certification process of our education in sports clubs, in football and futsal. This certification process that starts 4 years ago, at beginning only with focus in men's football. Nowadays we have 4 different certification processes. One in men's football, the second one in women's football, and also in futsal, boys and girls. And the certification process that nowadays is a huge process that our clubs in Portugal need to follow. And I believe that in the licensing process, in 1 or 2 years, the clubs will have also the criteria that they need to be in the certification process. But the certification process, the main idea is to create a very good process in terms of the evolution of the futsal and football players. And the certification process has 9 different criteria that are mandatory criteria. One, of course, is the technical criteria. That, of course, is probably the most important criteria that the clubs need to follow in order to be certified. But we have 8 other criteria that the majority of the criteria are related with management, the management of the clubs, the human resources of the clubs, the facilities, sport facilities of the clubs. And we believe with the certification process and with the collaboration with the different universities that the Portugal Football School need to follow, together the certification process, together with the education and training programs that we have in the Portugal Football School, we believe that we will have a very good and a better future for the sport in Portugal. And this is another idea that I want to share with you, that in fact, nowadays we are very, very worried with the education of our leaders, the guys that has responsibility of the development of the clubs in Portugal. And we need also to have leaders with tools and knowledge in topics related with management. And for that reason, the relation and the partnership with the Nova, Pedro forgot to talk about another education program, executive education program that we have with Nova, that will run in next September. Is a high performance center in leadership. Is a program, a 3 days program. 1 day and a half will be here in the campus, the Carcavelos, in your campus. And another 1 day and a half will be in the city of football. And the idea is the executives in the companies that usually the students of the NOVA will work in the future. We believe, and NOVA also believe, that they need to have the same worries in terms of the preparation, the acquisition of high levels of performance, exactly what we do with Cristiano Ronaldo. And then the idea is how the Portuguese FA organize, prepare Cristiano Ronaldo to play in the European football, and how NOVA prepare and help the executives to achieve a high level in their executive positions. And as Pedro said, we believe that sometimes we think that to prepare a football player is much different than the preparation of the executive for a company, but we believe that the things that are common between the player and the executive, we believe that are more common that are different. And we believe, NOVA will believe the knowledge that we have inside of the Portuguese FA, and of course the Portuguese FA and the stakeholders that are around of the sport in Portugal will also benefit from the knowledge that NOVA has inside. And I believe that the future in Portugal, and particularly in sports, the cooperation between education institutions and sport institutions will benefit, I believe, the sport in Portugal. But this is the idea.
Education shaping the future. And I guess it's about time that we close. We thank a lot the people in this room, our new partner, Sports Alliance, and people at home for watching this session. I'm more than happy to engage in any conversation about the topics we discussed here in the future, so please just approach me. And thanks a lot for the Student Union. Another show of what our students can achieve. So, thank you.
Thank you.